Yes. Welcome to my ramblings on Nauru. First of all, I guess, what is a Nauru and why am I here? Nauru is probably the smallest and least visited country in the world, a small rocky outcrop in the middle of the Pacific on the equator, located right about here. Pretty small, eh? Yeah, it takes about 2 hours dawdling around on a bike to get around. So small. If you've heard about Nauru before, it's probably because of some of their refugee processing centres, which get quite a lot of coverage in the media. But this ramblings isn't going to be about that, and instead it's about something which could make the 10,000 Nauruans that live there join those refugees, and it's something that isn't often touched upon, and this is the legacy of over 100 years of phosphate mining. Nauru as a country has been either blessed or cursed with some of the richest superphosphate deposits in the world, and since the 1900s they've been controlled by the Germans, the Japanese and the British and Australians. The one thing running constant from this was mining, and the effects at scrabbling away at 90% of the total landmass means that most of it is uninhabitable, for the 3-metre pinnacles protruding from almost every step on topside. At one point this lucrative trade made Nauru the richest country in the world per capita, with landowners getting yearly 6-figure payouts, meaning that they never washed clothes, they never fixed their cars, they never cooked for themselves, they're flying here, there and everywhere. Sounds like great fun, but walking around now and there's absolutely nothing to show for it. That lifestyle has completely vanished. And it's not too good for the animals that live there as well, with there being almost no original habitat left. And that means that the endemic biodiversity which live there is suffering to no end. But this isn't just a problem for the biodiversity. Yes, the soils may be completely unproductive, there's no original habitat, the oceans are completely overfished, but it's a massive problem for the humans that live there as well. The 3 main problems I found were food security, vulnerability to climate change and sea level rise, and economic sustainability. And I'm sure these contribute to a myriad of other complications as well. The affected area is what's known as topside, which is sort of a raised flat bit flying high above the rest of the island, and because this is all uninhabitable and full of 3-metre high pinnacles, not many people can live there, and this means that most people are living down by the coast. And if people can't live there, then food can't really be grown there either, and due to a lack of huge commercial growing space, overfished waters and a lack of personal gardens, there's not a whole lot of fresh food moving around the island. And I would honestly hate to imagine how expensive it would be to feed a family of 4 healthily for a week when I was paying $2 for an orange. Levels of obesity and diabetes are incredibly high too, almost shockingly so, even with so many people seemingly playing Aussie rules and weightlifting. With most of the 12 districts on the coast, it's as simple as they're incredibly vulnerable to sea level rise, with no higher ground to go back to when there's an emergency. And economic sustainability is also a big problem. Most of the workforce seem to still be employed in the mining company, which is on its last legs, operating below a profit, going on to secondary techniques, blowing up the pinnacles that are left there, sort of scraping the barrel for anything. And most of the government budget comes from the hosting of refugee camps for Australia. And what happens when these are gone? Who's going to pay and what's going to pay for the education and healthcare, which is so important? Nauru have been a one-trick pony for just a little bit too long, having all of their eggs in one basket, relying on a single finite resource to get them through. And now they're paying the price with an uncertain future. But the people here are incredibly strong and resilient, having brought their population back from less than 1,000 people on several occasions. And so they're going to try and get through this one, and there are projects in the pipeline from the chats I had around the island. The primary aim of these guys is to rehabilitate Nauru, to systematically smash up the pinnacles on topside, to try and create accommodation for them in the face of rising sea levels, and create fertile agricultural lands for food security and healthy foods. And is this the start of Nauru rehabilitating themselves to become a thriving, sustainable society? Or is it just a little bit too late? At current rates, topside will be flattened in around 150 years. So my initial thoughts are, unless serious changes are made and support received, they may not have time. And this is so sad because the Nauruans have one place to call home, and if it's gone, it's gone. So I really hope they do it. And this too is very much like our planet. We too only have one place to call home, and once it's gone, it's gone. And therefore, can Nauru be that wake-up call that we all need, that our current extractive systems are ravaging our planet, and that soon we may not have any original ecosystems left, torn down and ravaged, exploited. We may not have any fresh food and nowhere else to call home. Will we realise this damage before it's too late? I don't know, but I'm seriously going to keep fighting for it to make sure that doesn't happen, and maybe you guys will too. P.S. Imagine a country that probably 99% of people haven't even heard of being in this condition and potentially going extinct. Imagine how many other species are out there which are suffering from the same fate as Nauru, a country, before we even realise we're there. Food for thought. Ramblings. Out. And to keep up to date with everything, make sure you give all of these a follow.